Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs Podcast presented by DraftKings, America's top-rated sportsbook. Make sure you download the app, then use the promo code CHGO when you sign up. Happy Wednesday, snowing in Chicago. Luke Stuckmeyer, Cody Delmendo, Ryan Herrera, and our buddy Tim Stebbins, baseball writer here. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
We're going to have a good Cubs chat here today. We're going to talk a little Hall of Fame. We'll talk about stock up, stock down for Cubs players. And we'll tell you about what we have coming up for you tomorrow as well. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Give us a like, the 5-star review. We appreciate that. If you're a downloader of podcasts and you just listen to the audio version and you're on Spotify, we want a 5-star review. Go ahead and give us the 5-star. We want you to catch the people on Apple Podcasts. And we prefer the 5-star because a 4-star is basically a slap in the face.
4 stars like hitting 270.
Yeah,
5 stars.
Well,
5
that'll
stars
get you almost to the Hall of Fame these days.
You can leave 5. You can leave 5 stars, and you can continue to tell me how many times I say like way too much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're gonna like this podcast. That's what we're gonna say right out of the gate. So the big news the last 24 hours was that Scott Rolen has been inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame, or voted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And that got people going. Our friend Mark Carmen put out a Twitter thing saying, if you're going to let Scott Rolen into the Hall of Fame, you might as well allow Mark Grace.
You kind of sound like him. Exactly.
A little bit, right?
Yeah.
Boy, I will say he got a lot of feedback. There were like 3,000 hearts, I think, or something. There was a lot of feedback to it, right?
Engagement.
I'm not going to compare.
Keith Law was in his mentions telling him that he was basically called him a moron, basically. I mean, he didn't say that, but like he was like, you're better than this, Carm. And I was like, all right, Keith Law, you need to chill, bro. I didn't say that to him, but I was thinking it as I was reading it. Before
we start the segment, here's what I want to say. I don't really care who gets into the Hall of Fame anymore. Honestly, I don't. It doesn't impact my life at all. I don't lose sleep over Sammy's not in and Scott Rolen's going in. The only people that it should impact are really the players and their families. However, if you're asking me to analyze who's in and who's not, I've got some opinions. So we'll discuss that. How did it make you feel when you saw Scott Rolen going into the Hall of Fame? Did you have any Cub reaction to it, and how did you feel in general about Scott Rolen?
I like the video of his parents, him telling his parents, like that was
very
nice,
very
and heartwarming.
I agree. That's big of me to say.
I mean, we talked about it prior to the show. Did I watch Scott Rolen play baseball and automatically think Hall of Famer? No, but clearly the Hall of Fame voters didn't think that way either. They didn't vote him in on the first ballot. He wasn't the first ballot Hall of Famer. You kind of had to keep getting voted on to stay on the ballot. But so in that sense, no, he wasn't a Hall of Famer on first glance. But you take a look at some of the numbers. I could see why he got voted in. I'm not I wasn't pounding the table saying he should be this whole time. But it's also, he was a very good player for most of his career. Good defender, all this different stuff. It just becomes to the point where I don't know what the Hall of Fame. There's no. It's obviously subjective, right? Mm-hmm. There's no benchmark of a Hall of Fame player. So, I mean, it's just it's more like a popularity kind of contest to me. And if I'm voting for it, I would like to vote for the deserving players.
Well, you might someday, though. Yeah. You and Tim both might have a vote someday for the Baseball Hall of Fame,
which is true.
So, as you're thinking about that ahead in your future, what would be your criteria for picking out a guy for the Hall of Fame? Do you care about the integrity part? Because I know Ryan Sandberg is one of the big ones that's in the Hall of Fame, and a lot of the guys from his era will say the word integrity is on the crest of the Baseball Hall of Fame. That's important. And so that's why a lot of the former players that are in there that don't want Barry Bonds and Sammy Sosa and those guys in, they look at the word integrity on the crest on their stuff and they say, well, they didn't play with integrity.
Yeah.
And then you also have the stats. So how will you evaluate that if you get that opportunity?
Yeah. Let him take that one.
I mean, if you ask me this, I change my opinion weekly, it seems like. But I think the bottom line is I'll start with all these guys are in the Hall of Fame, technically, from at least the museum perspective. I know that's lame to say. I think I think the morality part does matter. I think we talk about how much they benefit and help their own careers, but something I think we don't think about a lot is how much they may have hurt other players' careers. If you're a hitter and you're just teeing off on a guy, and like, how does that impact that guy's numbers down in the grand scheme of things? And that's kind of a smaller scale, but I think I would say this. Would I one day hope to and wish to vote for the Hall of Fame? Yes. Right now, am I glad I don't have to make these decisions? Also, yes, because I don't think you can win. I really don't. No. I think this is one 20-year span where what do you do? What do you do with it? Do you go only solely on the numbers? And like Barry Bonds was on that trajectory before he started being linked to this stuff. Do you just say forget it, or do you just say like, no, there has to be a line here? So this is a really tough era. I think maybe Scott Rolen is somebody that this is his 5th year on the ballot, right? Like, I think at some point he probably would have got in, Veterans Committee or otherwise, but because of all these other guys who aren't soaking in all these votes, right now in this era, you're going to get some players who are maybe on that tier list and not the Barry Bondses of the world.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's a very divisive. Like, every player that's been attached, whether they've admitted to it, failed a drug test, or just allegations of taking steroids or PEDs, whatever. It's all very divisive, and you have half the people. Honestly, it's probably like very close to 50-50, if not, if not exactly 50-50. Of there's people that really hate what they did to the game and tainted the game. But there's people that, like Cody wants steroids back in the game. Like there's
absolutely.
I don't have to ask Cody. I know that he believes Sammy deserves it way more than Scott Rolen does.
But, so that's why I'm with Tim.
Homers, dude.
I'm with Tim in that I'm happy I don't have to vote on this era of players because like he said, you can't win. You're gonna get yelled at no matter what side you fall on.
I don't care about that. Like, if you're gonna yell, whatever. It's just like,
I'm just
it's
like,
hard.
It's hard for myself, and I also don't want to deal with the crazy fans that will just be in my mentions every day.
Are you guys ready for a little game of mystery player?
You didn't let me give my take.
Oh, I'm sorry. Give your take, Cody.
Even we though know your take.
Well,
your take is Sammy over Rolen.
Well, yeah. Yes, I will say that, like, I don't even really care that Scott Rolen got in. Like you said, the 5th year on the ballot, fine, whatever. Like, is he what someone in the chat said? He's the 18th third baseman to ever get in. Is he one of the 8, like, in all of baseball, guys to be qualified? Is he one of the 18th best third baseman ever? Maybe defensively. He was great defensively. I think he has a Hall of Fame resume defensively. I mean, I watched that guy, unfortunately, way too much because of where I lived growing up. But, like, to me, like, considering who's on the ballot, like, I do kind of sympathize. Thank you. I kind of feel that way for the voters, but they all, like, listen, Tim, I know that you're like morality and all this, but like they did it to themselves by not putting the guys who I believe deserve to get in, man. Like that's just kind of my feeling about it. And also, I do think Todd Helton deserves to get in. He's the greatest Rocky ever, and people are going to use the whole Coors thing against him. Like,
he was close.
Who cares, man? Like, when you think of the Colorado Rockies, you're thinking of Todd Helton, and that guy was one of the best first basemen in the league when I was a kid. So, if there's one guy, if you put a gun to my head and asked me to like choose someone else, that's the guy I would have chosen. But again, 5th year on the ballot for Rolen. To me, he was great, in my opinion. So, and that's saying something coming from me and who he played for. So.
It's big of you.
All right, I got this really quick.
It is big of me.
Yeah, what do you got?
Third baseman all time. This is Baseball Reference. Rolen is 10th in WAR. Everyone above him is in the Hall of Fame. And I know maybe defense is a big part of that, but I think that's kind of interesting. Like, at some point, this guy was going to get in. It's just a matter of the timing.
Nobody's debating if he was a good player. He was a good player. Fred McGriff was a good player, too. Let's look at these mystery players I put together and some of their stats, and you tell me who definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame and who does not. Okay, player A, 18 seasons. All 3 guys are at the same position. 18 seasons, 3-time All-Star, career WAR of 32, 386 home runs. So the most out of any of those 3 players, the 386. Okay. The batting average, 283. So highest batting average of any of those players. Silver Slugger, RBI-wise, 1,400. Leads the list there, too. Mm-hmm. So fewest All-Star appearances, but highest batting average, most RBIs, and most home runs. Most seasons as well. Player B, 17 seasons, 7-time All-Star, by far the highest WAR at 70, 316 homers, so you're talking like 70 homers less, 8 Gold Gloves. There's one you don't see necessarily with the other ones. Player C, though, has 5 Gold Gloves. Okay, interesting. And then also a 70 WAR, 9-time All-Star.
9-time All-Star.
Who are
9-time All-Stars in less seasons, too.
2 of those 3 are Hall of Famers. One is not.
Okay. Okay, is the first one Harold Baines?
First one is not Harold Baines. All 3 players are the same position here.
You're wanting us to guess these, right?
No, you don't have to.
Okay.
All right, you ready for the big reveal? Joey's on the ones and twos. He's back from France, by the way.
Wow.
Aramis Ramirez is pretty damn close to Ron Santo and Scott Rolen. Now, I look at those numbers, and I don't say in any way, shape, or form, okay. Player A was Aramis Ramirez.
That's
18
3-time
season,
All-Star,
3-time All-Star. His WAR, half of basically what Rolen's is, but he's got more home runs, a better batting average, and more RBIs, and played 1 extra season. I'm not going to compare him to Ron Santo. I just wanted Santo to be in there because Santo's a guy that they kept out of the Hall of Fame until he died, which was criminal.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So the fact that Ron Santo wasn't in the Hall of Fame, and you look at his numbers next to Scott Rolen, you go, what? Like, he was a 9-time All-Star. Now, there's some numbers that I didn't put on these graphics that are really telling you the two. I'm just telling you, when I look at Aramis Ramirez and Scott Rolen with the stats that are on that graphic, I'm not telling you Aramis Ramirez is a Hall of Famer. Mm-hmm. I'm just telling you the numbers aren't crazy different. And I've never heard anybody say Aramis Ramirez should be in the Hall of Fame. So are you telling me it's just Gold Gloves that?
I think that's what's putting them over the top.
Well,
sure.
because
but I'm just saying, have you ever heard anybody say Aramis Ramirez should be in the Hall of Fame?
No.
Well, as Tim said earlier, defense, as far as WAR goes, defense really helps in that. Like it factors in a lot to overall wins above replacement. And I mean, I guess when looking at that and looking at what Ron Santo's case was, and clearly he was the deserving Hall of Famer, Scott Rolen doesn't that far off. Like that kind of makes me lean even more towards Scott Rolen.
Sure, agreed. His numbers are similar to Ron Santo. My point is just like
it's not as insane.
They waited till Ron Santo died.
Yeah.
Before they finally put him in.
Yeah,
I mean, the ballot was probably tougher though.
Yeah.
Well, and it's a different era too. Like even comparing the home runs and stuff is very difficult. Now, these are the stats that I think are really interesting. First place votes and MVP votes, okay?
Okay.
This is one that doesn't do much for Scott Rolen. Scott Rolen, in his 17 seasons, had 1 first place vote for MVP. In 17 seasons, he got 1 vote for MVP. He only finished in the top 10 of baseball for MVP 4 times. 4 times in his whole 17-season career did he finish in the top 10 for MVP. Aramis Ramirez, 3 top 10 finishes for MVP in his career.
Would not.
Aramis was more of an MVP according to those votes than Scott Rolen was. Aramis was got some sort of vote for MVP in the National League 5 different seasons. Again, I'm not saying Aramis Ramirez is a Hall of Famer. I'm just telling you, if you're telling me a guy wasn't even, only 1 season did he get votes.
Yeah.
And then you look at Ron Santo, and this is where you separate Santo from Scott Rolen, because you don't have to compare home runs and RBIs. The game changes. It's different. But if you're comparing him to his peers and the guys he's playing against, now, remember, he's playing with guys like Ernie Banks. He's playing against the glory players of baseball, the best of the best, right? Ron Santo didn't have any first place votes, but he finished in the top 10 4 different times and in the top 5 twice. Scott Rolen can't touch that. Can't touch that.
Rolen was also Rookie of the Year, though, and in the World Series in 2006, he hit, 420 it says right here. So, I don't know how much that has to do with it. I think Ramirez, when you put those 3 up there, I had no idea that would be Aramis Ramirez. It's pretty interesting to
I just
see that.
And I wasn't even seeking it out. I just thought to myself, who else played third base a lot during that era? Yeah. And then I'm like, well, Ramos played a lot. He had a lot of home runs. Let me look at the two numbers. Mm-hmm. Again, if I look at the two resumes, I would say Scott Rolen is the Hall of Famer, especially because of the Gold Glove. Much better fielder.
I'll tell you right now.
I just don't think they're that different.
If we're having this conversation 20 years ago, Ramirez probably has a lot better of a shot at getting in, like in comparison to Rolen. Because, like, the home runs, like, that was such a big difference a long time ago. Now it's like WAR isn't the be-all, end-all of getting into the Hall of Fame, but a lot of voters do use that for, to help just kind of to put in perspective how good these players were on both sides of the ball, especially compared to, like, their contemporary players, all that stuff. So the fact that we're talking about it in 2023 now, and Ramos Ramirez's WAR was so far below Scott Rolen's, is a huge, impediment to Ramos Ramirez.
Scott Rolen's a better player. Eyeball test, Scott Rolen better player than Ramos Ramirez.
As an overall player.
Yeah.
For a hitter, though, pretty similar, like Stuckey said.
But that's the whole thing.
The MVP vote thing is kind of crazy.
Yeah. Well, also, during that era, Albert Pujols was the best player on the planet, so Scott Rolen wasn't looked at as the guy.
I was going to ask.
While Ramos Ramirez was looked at as the guy during his peak years with the Cubs.
That's what I was looking at. I was thinking about did Scott Rolen maybe get overlooked as like a piece of those really, really good Cardinals teams for because he spent 6 seasons in St. Louis, was on that World Series team, was also on that that 04 team that got swept by the Red Sox. The teams that kept winning the Central that whole decade. Did Scott Rolen get overlooked just because he was on the same team as Albert Pujols? Jim Edmonds was at his peak at that point. I mean, Chris Carpenter was still pitching. Yadier Molina was at the beginning of his career. Like,
this isn't a Cardinals podcast.
He's not allowed on this podcast. Here's another guy. Here's one other guy's stats that I threw in there. 22 seasons, WAR 38.8, similar to a Ramos. 384 home runs, 289 batting average, 6-time All-Star. The most RBIs at 1,600. 0 top 10 finishes for MVP, had votes in 4 different seasons. Who is it? Harold Baines, Hall of Fame.
There you go.
So, again, I don't personally care who's in the Hall of Fame, but if you're telling me that Harold Baines is a Hall of Famer and you're not even talking about a Ramos Ramirez, guys, you should just have a Hall of Good, a Hall of Great Guys, a Hall of this era. Like, it's starting to become a little bit ridiculous, and it's disappointing to me because I think of all the Hall of Fames, the Baseball Hall of Fame is the one that I actually respect. Other sports just seem to put anybody in there. And so I liked the fact that the Baseball Hall of Fame held it to this high credibility. You had to be the all-time greats in that sport. And so that's why, is Ramos Ramirez a Hall of Famer? No. But I'm not sure that Scott Rolen is a Hall of Famer. I'm not sure that Harold Baines is a Hall of Famer. And I don't know what to make out of the steroid guys. They're clearly the greatest players of that era. Some of them probably whether or not they took the steroids.
Yeah. To me, whether you think they're deserving or not, specifically the ones you're talking about, it's tough to look at it for the baseball writers to only decide that only Scott Rolen, of all the guys on that ballot, like only Scott Rolen
is on that ballot.
Like that's to me, like, because you want to talk about credibility and integrity. Well, okay, you're not going to let steroid guys in, but you're going to let David Ortiz, Jeff Bagwell, Pudge Rodriguez in. All 3 guys were linked to steroids at one point in their career.
Pudge is a great example,
right? Like,
Pudge follows me on Twitter.
Just to me, this integrity thing is just makes me want to throw up, honestly. So, I'm with you, Luke. Like, I don't really care anymore because, like, it doesn't make any sense. That to me, it comes down to who the writers just liked. That's just how, like, you let David Ortiz in because he was like a fan favorite. His personality was awesome, but also linked to steroids.
That's right.
But we're not gonna let these other guys in. And I know I'm going back to the steroids thing, but this is why Luke feels the way he does, though, because they're letting some of these other guys in who you can argue are borderline, but you didn't let the guys who clearly dominated an era in. And to me, someone looking through my lens, it's just kind of like, all right, well then what's the point of this? Like, we're just here to clap for some guy for getting in because we had to get someone in. Like, it's just like a bunch of nonsense.
That's where I struggle with it. I tell you, like we talked about this at the top of the show. I might switch my opinion on this every 5 seconds. It's like, man, like you're talking about Barry Bonds and it's all these guys like, man, they should be in. Like, look at the numbers. And I'm like, well, like, mess around and find out, right? Like, I don't know, man. It's so tough to me. Like, Barry Bonds was going to be in the Hall of Fame, and then 1998 happened, and then he felt like he had to catch up, or however you want to talk about that. Like, they're in the Hall of Fame. It's like, are you deserving of being enshrined when how you finalized the end of your career? What was the final result? How did you get to that?
What about? And this isn't related to steroids. What about Carlos Beltran? Because Nightingale wrote that article the other day about how it's time for him to get in, and people are holding back because he was on the Astros in 2017 and had to do, which was the cheating scandal team. So like, but wasn't he like a coach or something like I don't know.
He was still playing.
Was he still playing?
But he wasn't. It wasn't.
But he wasn't like a guy.
It also like was like
prime years were his prime years were well past like.
Well, that's the thing is like even that whole thing, just Beltran specifically, that whole thing didn't help him. Like his numbers weren't good, but it may have helped the rest. I don't know. But like Tim is kind of saying, like I kind of flip flop on it too, because it's like, well, Barry Bonds, he never tested positive for steroids as far as I remember. Did he? Bonds?
Sammy's never been proven either.
Sammy's never been proven.
He just keeps denying it.
Links, and then I think Sammy was part of that anonymous survey or anonymous testing that was leaked or whatever, but nothing proven. And it's like, okay, well, like, do you just assume that they were using steroids without any like real legitimate? I don't know. And then you also think about, well, a guy like Mark McGwire who admitted it and kind of paid his debt to baseball, and now he's been welcomed back in by the Cardinals, or the Dodgers had him as a hitting coach or whoever it was. He's been started to welcome back into baseball. Like this, has he worked his way back? Should he be back in the good graces of the voters enough to be voted into the Hall of Fame? Like it's a very weird kind of.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope. That's just why I've gotten to the point where I just don't care anymore.
But I also feel
I just don't care. Like I think the players should have a say. Like the former players, the veterans committee that's in there, they should have a say. If it's about integrity and it's their club, cool. But really, the Hall of Fame started by the writers. They have the vote. They should have. It's almost like you have to have multiple Hall of Fames.
Yeah.
And then it just waters it down, and it's just become. I think it's one of the biggest problems with the steroid era has become what it's done to the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
It's left everybody everybody has a hot take opinion about it. And for me personally, I'm just saying, when you start to look at the numbers of different players, I don't know what's going on anymore. And I like Scott Rolen. Do I have a problem with him in the Hall of Fame? No. But back to what it all started with, Carm tweeting Mark Grace. I don't think Mark Grace is a Hall of Famer either.
It's a Cubs Hall of Famer.
He's a Cubs Hall of Famer, that's right. Well, they better get a Ramos in the Cubs Hall of Fame based on those numbers, because he's pretty close to Scott Rolen.
Yeah. I don't think he's eligible, actually. I remember at the Cubs convention when everyone was chanting for Sammy, and then Ricketts said he's not even eligible. So I'm like, let's see, Sammy's career with the Cubs ended in what, 04 or 05 was last year, whichever year it was. 04. And then Ramirez was through like 09 or something like that. So
well, how long do you have to be retired?
I have no idea. But if Sammy Sosa isn't eligible yet, then I would assume
2024. I think it's after they retire. I don't know the exact. I'm not good at math, but I don't know when that year would have been. But I know Sammy's. They said 2024, which is they're gonna have to confront this head on.
Until Pat Hughes went in, I'll be honest, I don't think I knew there was a Cubs Hall of Fame.
They brought it back, right? It was older, like 30 years ago.
So I mean, it's not.
Yeah, I like the comment. I think his name's Tom. He says Ozzie Smith was a good shortstop, could do backflips, but couldn't hit a lick. And is in the Hall, and like that's a lot of like how I feel about Yadier Molina, but also like you can use this as something for Aramis Ramirez if you wanted to actually argue it, because his defense wasn't very good, but he hit the ball a ton, right? So like, but also when Ozzie Smith got in, it was a complete different era. It was a long time ago, so it goes back to what Luke was saying, where a lot of it just doesn't make any sense. And
it's impacted the Hall of Fame. It's impacted the game, the steroids era. The people I feel bad for are not the players that are not going in. I don't feel bad for Sammy and for Bonds and Clemens. I don't feel bad for the players like Scott Rolen who are getting the scrutiny of everybody going like, wait, what about this guy? I actually feel bad for the players that are in there that did it the right way and are the all-time greats. Ryan Sandberg, Frank Thomas, go down the list of like Lou Gehrig, the all-time greats of baseball where there's just no question that person's the Hall of Famer.
Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah, now it's just gotten so muddy that I feel like it's tarnishing what they built in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. No,
that said, I would still go to Cooperstown if you gave me a ticket.
Yeah.
I think we should because Pat Hughes is getting in this year.
That's a great point.
Also, before we end this, Ramos Ramirez, do you guys know he played in that wild card game against the Cubs in 2015?
Yeah, he finished his career with the Brewers.
But no, he finished his career with the Pirates.
Oh, the Pirates.
He was in that.
Really?
He played in that
Yes.
wild card game.
I did not know that.
I don't know that. Someone mentioned to me at Cubs convention. I'm like,
That's right.
I wouldn't have guessed it. He pinch hit and played third. Pinch hit in the 7th inning.
Wow.
Somebody in the chat said
remember
Ramos
that.
played a few years too long, and that's probably true.
Probably.
But he was underrated as a Cubs player. I know he wasn't
A lot of guys
spectacular
played way
third
too
baseman,
long.
but for what they got him for, one of the all-time great Cub trades for sure.
Yeah.
The ComEd Energy Efficiency Program is committed to helping families and businesses in the communities we serve manage the energy usage and lower energy bills. Now and into the future, ComEd offers a wide array of incentives on lighting and other efficiency upgrades to commercial, industrial, public sector customers of all sizes across their territory. Customers can inquire about how to upgrade outdated lighting to energy and money-saving efficient LEDs. Learn more about network lighting to operate your lights through mobile devices and track your facility's energy usage. And more. Incentives have recently increased for indoor-outdoor lighting, network lighting controls, and making these projects even more cost-effective than they have ever been. ComEd.com/poweringbiz right now to start saving money and energy. To start a project, contact them at 1-855-433-2700. For more information, email them at businessee@comed.com or publicsectoree@comed.com. And I'll tell you one thing you don't necessarily need today, Shady Rays, but every other day you need your Shady Rays.
Yeah, I know, Tim, I was going to say, like, you got the new whip. On a day that's not today, you're going to be driving around. You're maybe on the highway or around the city. Sun might be in your eyes. You need sunglasses. And
keep the snow out of your eyes.
That's true. That's true. But there's no better pair to get if you want Shady Rays. Shady Rays never understood why sunglasses were so expensive, so they set out to change it. You don't have to break the bank for quality sunglasses this fall because our friends at Shady Rays have you covered. Shady Rays are premium polarized shades featuring world-class optical clarity, substantial durability, and styles catered to everyone and every lifestyle. The best part about Shady Rays, they have the most insane protection program in all of eyewear, lost and broken replacements. If you lose or break your shades on day one, they told us they will send you a brand new pair, no questions asked. Drop them in a lake, off a cliff, anything, they'll replace them. Even with that strong of a protection program, they still manage to make quality that I can tell you holding in my hand. I would be having them on my head. I forgot in my backpack. They're over there. But, they still manage to make quality that I can tell you seems just as good as any expensive pair that I have ever worn. Shady Rays customers seem to agree with over 200,000 five-star reviews. Shady Rays also provides 10 meals to fight hunger in America with every order placed and have donated over 20 million meals to date. They stand behind their product and told our team that if anyone has a problem, they throw profit out the window and do what it takes to get it right. You get free returns and exchanges. You either love the shades or Shady Rays will pay to ship them back. That's it. And exclusively for our listeners, listen up, Tim. Shady Rays is running their deepest deal of the season. Use code CHGO for 50% off 2 or more pairs at shadyrays.com. That's buy one, get one free, as Luke likes to call it, BOGO. You can get 2 pairs for as low as $54. Redeem that code CHGO for 50% off only at shadyrays.com, where you can find all their newest and best shades.
The kids call it BOGO.
You can also get your Shady Rays when you lose all your money on DraftKings.
Shane wants to know why I don't
So
have
you
this.
cover your pain.
Shane wants to know why I don't have this read memorized by now. It's long, okay? It's a long ad read. You could tell.
Well, it's emotional for you because you're so passionate about your Shady Rays that you get a little choked up every time you go to read it. Get a little verklempt. You start to get a little choked up. The tears start to well up, and then you got to restart. It's not that it's long. It's an emotional read for you.
That's fair.
It's a tough time. Yeah,
I
feel it.
You got. Should we do a little stock up, stock down?
Did you?
Yiddish? Verklempt?
Clem?
Thank you. Can we did we hear Joey there or not?
Joey said it's good Yiddish.
Said it was good Yiddish.
The audacity.
Thank you.
The audacity to
Joey's back,
bring
by the
up
way.
stock up, stock down, and not think that I would have some sort of PTSD from this exercise.
I forgot to tell
trade
Joey.
value up, trade value down.
This is my bad. I forgot to tell Joey that we need your tweet graphic of the stock up, stock down, and we should have built these for everybody that's watching on YouTube. But we're going to go less graphic heavy in this one.
Cody made a graphic?
I didn't make a graphic.
No, I should have thought of it.
Oh,
we should have had his. He always tweeted every player, every at bat.
Yeah.
Every time Michael
Somebody get a hit,
Givens
they were stock
had a
trade
clean
value.
inning, it
We
was stock
stock
up.
up.
Yeah, you should have had you do that at the end of the season, like where they started to where how far the value went up or down
Yeah.
by the end of the year. That would have been good.
Yeah. I really hope that bit never comes back again. Like I do. That's my least favorite bit I've ever had.
But don't you think it is possible that the Cubs could be potentially competitive in the division, still in the hunt for some sort of playoff spot, whether it's division or wild card, yet they also could still be sellers?
Well, I mean, I guess it would depend on, say Cody Bellinger has a great season or has a great first half, and then like one of the outfield prospects comes up and is like mind-blowingly awesome, and you just want to give him more bats. Then am I going to start doing Cody Bellinger stock up, stock down tweets? Perhaps. Yeah. But, I mean, I don't know if the Cubs
explodes onto the scene, and you have Mancini and you have Hosmer.
Well, I don't know. Tim, what do you think?
Can they sell and thread that needle? Yeah, I mean, you've seen teams do that. I feel like Cleveland does that a lot. Cleveland comes to mind at least as someone who does that.
I feel like the Orioles kind of did it last year too, even though they didn't make the playoffs. But they did sell Mancini, and they were way better than anyone expected.
Yeah.
That felt like throwing the towel. I don't know why I wouldn't have done it without the Orioles, but I think there's a way to do that. Yeah, all these signings or number of these signings are guys on short-term contracts. Like I don't think you would trade. The Cubs would not trade Trey Mancini this year because you have him on 2 years. But Cody Bellinger is really interesting. I mean, I don't know if he gets back to a semblance of his form, you wouldn't want to trade that guy. But I mean, from what he's been the last couple of years. And if like Brennan Davis, if you felt comfortable, if he was ready to play center field when he's probably more of a corner guy, yeah, maybe Cody Bellinger, you cash in on that because of what he's been the last few years before, who knows, like maybe the way he struggled, there's a balance there, I guess, but I don't think they should do that. If they're serious about competing and this guy's hitting well, no, you should hold on to that.
If he has weighted runs created well over 100 in that first half like that, then it's like, extend him, you know what I mean? Like,
I think,
in my eyes,
I think where that might be most likely to come from is the bullpen. You got Brad Boxberger in there. They're still looking to sign at least one more guy, veteran guy, cheap guy. And so we've seen them do well, flipping, David Robertson, Michael Givens, Chris Martin, Chafin, Tepera, flipping them on the deadline the last couple of years. But they also are developing really good pitchers in the minor leagues who potentially could come. Brandon Hughes and Jeremiah Estrada come to mind. There's going to be a few more guys in AAA that probably could be very close to making their big league debuts out of the bullpen. So if it kind of gets to that point where these guys are ready and they come up a few times, have some good outings, I could theoretically see the Cubs flipping a guy like Brad Boxberger or whoever this other veteran reliever might be at the deadline because they're like, you know what, we got guys who are ready to come up that are our own guys. Let's see what we can get out of these guys who are only here on one-year contracts anyway. I could see that being what the Cubs do, even if they are, in that wild card hunt or still, within striking distance of the Cardinals or at the top of the NL Central. I could see that being a scenario. I don't know that it's incredibly likely, but it's plausible in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, if they were to do that, I just hope they're not selling 4 guys because we saw how that bullpen performed after they did that, at least to start, and they eventually were able to find their roles and get better in September. But again, this is all pending if the Cubs are in a competitive
but I don't think
spot.
I don't think they're relying on Brad Boxberger and who this other guy is going to be as much as they did Robertson, Givens, and Martin last year. Those were their 3, and Efros too. Those were their 4 best relievers last year.
That's true.
When that trade deadline went down, I don't know that Brad Boxberger is going to be one of their top back end guys. I don't know who this. If they do sign another one, I don't know that he'll be either. I think you got your long relief weapons and Keegan and Adbert. Brandon Hughes did really well last year. Estrada has the stuff to be a really good back end guy. I don't know that they're going to be relying on their veterans that are a little more of trade chips than other guys as much as they did the guys they did. David Robertson, Givens, Martin, Chafin, Tepera, even Kimbrel.
Speaking of bullpen guys, who are the guys that got outrighted to AAA yesterday?
Manny Rodriguez and Anthony Kay.
Anthony Kay. All right, the Anthony Kay era lives on.
I think this is an interesting comment from Rick. He talked about Stroman as the player option for 24. Again, I don't think you trade someone like that if he's contributing, and last year was kind of a weird year for him with the COVID and the shoulder, and second half he kind of was the guy you thought you were getting when you signed him. But that's really interesting to me. Like, do I think they should do that? No, but starting pitching, everyone's always looking for starting pitching come mid-July, right? Like, if you felt comfortable enough with your depth and someone comes to you with a ridiculous offer, would you at least have to listen? Probably. But if you're in the thick of the race, should you do that? No. But as a possibility, I haven't really thought about that myself. That's pretty interesting.
Especially if they're a fringe in the race team, right? Like, if they're in the race, sure, that's one thing. I don't think you bail out of it because anything could happen. But if they're one of those teams that really doesn't know which one they are, then maybe you consider something like that. Can we all agree if we said stock is up for the Cubs in this, that it would be run prevention and defense? As a team, run prevention and defense, the stock is certainly going up.
Yes.
What would be the stock down as a franchise?
Extensions?
I mean,
power? I don't know.
Power feels like pretty much the same to me with potential to be better. Yeah. Like, you lost Wilson. I mean, you lost Wilson. You added Dansby to somewhat replace it. Trey Mancini helps with that. The power, I mean, it's not like great. They don't have like great power hitters like throughout the lineup. It feels kind of relatively even with potential to be better.
I just think if we can't come up with an obvious stock down, and again, if you had to pick stock up for anything, defense might not be the one I would want to be the first. That would be if I would want it to be offense or pitching or whatever. But if you can't really come up with a clear stock down as a franchise, I think that points to good things for the direction they're going, right? Like, you can't look at it and say, wow, they're getting worse here.
Yeah.
Whereas other years you could look at them and be like, they're getting worse here, here, and here.
I mean, I think if you're looking at it from a full team perspective, there's not a lot of subtractions this year. I think they had a solid offseason, that they're a better team overall, not like tremendously better. But if you look at it like individual players, I think like Kyle Hendricks' stock is way down. I mean, it was down the second half of last season for sure, but now I will get into that. But he's probably not going to be ready for opening day. Who knows? Like, the capsular tear is a weird injury that who knows if he can ever kind of get back to what he was. Like, it's.
I mean, if I had to choose one, I mean, I guess offense would be the one. If you forcibly made me choose, I would say the offense is the one that's down, because there's just a lot to prove there. You don't. Like, I feel better about the pitching than I do the offense. Feel good about the pitching and defense. But the offense, there's a lot of questions, a lot of like, all right, I'm going to hold my beer. You go out there and prove it. Like, I'm waiting, because I want y'all to prove me wrong on that.
Offense is kind of both, like stock down and stock up. Like, stock down, I mean, I feel like you've added a lot of guys. Strikeout totals might go up in that lineup, but stock up, like, you have a much better floor now all across those positions that you've added. Like,
that's fair.
Think about Trey Mancini. If he's not going to be at first base with Hosmer there, then as a DH, like, think about all the guys they shuffled in a DH last year, and they like to have versatility there. But I mean, Mancini is more of a proven hitter than a lot of guys they had there last year, and first base production was terrible last year, if you want to be honest there. And Hosmer at least is around league average, so like, they've at least stock up there from what they were. Stock down maybe the type of offense it could be, but it should be a better offense overall. It's like what you're saying. There's not something obvious here that is considerably down, unless you want to talk about guys who have. I mean, I was
individual guys, you can say that. Like, Hendricks is the obvious one. Like, his stock is down because we don't know, right? But as like a group team, I just don't see a specific spot. Catcher would be catcher offense. Like, if you want to get that specific,
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the two catchers are not going to produce what Wilson did offensively last year.
Stock down. I mean, but this goes back before the offseason is the bullpen. Like, what do you have in the bullpen? Like, proven guys, but that's not since the offseason started. That's been a thing since, as you mentioned, you traded all those guys away.
Yeah.
That's true.
But they like a lot of their in-house arms. So, like, I'm saying that now to kind of reach, but maybe that proves to not be something.
Like, a lot of people in the chat are always talking about how the bullpen is in shambles, and I'm not going to go that far until the Cubs prove that what they're thinking on how they're going to do their bullpen, how they shape it up. I'm not going to criticize it until it's bad, because last year it was like the strength of their team was the bullpen and the second half starting pitching. So there's a lot of unproven guys in there. They don't have a clear closer right now until Cody Hoyer is healthy, I guess. But as Ryan said, he mentioned some names that have a lot of high upside. And if the Cubs, for real, if they're going to have that much confidence in those guys, and other guys that they have DFA'd have decided to go free agency, like we talked about with Leiter Jr. the other day, then that has to show some sort of this team's got some dudes. They just don't have any proven guys, except for Boxberger, and maybe Brandon Hughes has proved enough for some people, but it was 1 year. So you gotta see a lot more from a lot of those guys to feel, I guess, confident about their bullpen being elite or anything like that.
What do you guys expect out of Kyle Hendricks this year? And has it changed since you read Patrick Mooney's article in The Athletic, just kind of describing his process of what he's going through, how it's just kind of the beginning phases of what he's going through? Hendricks talks about in the article, if you haven't read it, it's really good. It talks about, he chose not to have surgery, and most guys don't need surgery for a capsular tear. Percentages might be debatable on who and who does not, but he's all about arm angle and arm path, right? And if you're not able to repeat that, especially at his age, he becomes less and less effective. So that's why they shut him down. And now he's trying to build up everything around that capsular tear to try and get him through the next phase, right? So do you feel better or worse about Kyle Hendricks, and what do you really expect? I say I don't know what to expect, but if you had to really guess what he'll offer you this season, what does Kyle Hendricks give the Cubs?
I don't feel any different about it since that article. I think, what are we saying? Cubs fans on the Twitters are saying are all concerned. I don't feel any different about it.
On the Twitters.
On the interwebs.
On the interwebs.
I think all along it's been anything he gives you, assuming it's not, assuming it's positive outings or 5 innings of 3 runs or whatever. I always assumed that anything he would give you in that realm is a bonus at this point. They clearly went into this. I think Jed said in October, with any injured player going into an offseason, you can't necessarily count on them and how you're building your roster. Yeah. So I think if he winds up, whenever he debuts, if opening day is probably optimistic, if it's more May and he's someone who gives you 100 innings and he's at least more closer to the Kyle Hendricks we saw before 2021, and even in 2021 he was pretty good. Before the last 2 months he kind of struggled. That's great, because you've built up enough depth now where you don't have to count on him, and you don't have to expect 180 innings and a 3.5 ERA at the worst, as you had in the past.
Yeah, no, I agree. I wasn't too reactionary to it. It was just kind of one of those things where when you're dealing with an injured player, things can happen.
Yeah,
and you can go look back at the tape. There's hours of content on CHGO Cubs podcast feed of me saying that I don't feel great about Kyle Hendricks going into 2023. It's more of if he can be healthy, if he can give you however many starts, and he's not your number 1 starter going into 2023 or a top 3 starter, then whatever he gives you is a bonus at this point. Again, that was before the offseason. It was going into the offseason, honestly, where I said a lot of that stuff. So, I don't feel any different. The positive of this is the Cubs have starting pitching depth. I feel like Adrian Sampson has a good chance to be that number 5 guy now to start the year. Maybe Hayden Wesneski, we see him earlier if they start him in AAA.
Yeah, that's a good question, Tim.
And that's the thing.
Where Wesneski? That's like, just not to go off too much of a tangent, but we've had that conversation about where we think Wesneski starts the season. In your opinion, where, just looking at how it is now, where's Wesneski on opening day?
AAA, bullpen, or rotation?
I think he'll get every chance to win a rotation job. I think having Thompson and Alzolay probably in the bullpen means Sampson versus Wesneski for the 5 spot. I think Sampson – I feel like it's going to be Sampson, and you're not going to put Wesneski in the bullpen. You're going to keep him stretched out.
Yeah.
So I would say AAA rotation. That's just me. Maybe they think he's so electric out of the bullpen and we get an extra multi-inning arm. But Sampson, man, like – the numbers speak for themselves here. I just got it right here. I mean, 3.11 in 21 games last year, 19 starts, 3.11 ERA. I know Wesneski showed really strong flashes too, but like,
I want to find my tweet, my like his historic tweet that I found on my own on StatHead.
I think he's AAA rotation, but I think we'll see him sooner than later.
But we're saying that AAA rotation because the Cubs want to keep him stretched out, not because he's not
one of their best pitchers.
Right.
Like, he may be better than somebody that's at the major league level. They just don't want to use him in the role that they could potentially.
Right.
And
I get that.
But that said, like Thompson last year was someone who was bullpen multi-inning guy, and then it was not a big leap for him to get stretched out to starting within the big leagues, right? But I think Alzolay and Thompson, assuming they're on the big league in the bullpen, we know Alzolay probably is, but you have a bit of a redundancy there where you can afford to have Wesneski start and stay stretched out in AAA.
Yeah.
Well, does the depth of the pitching staff change the way they've been working guys into the major leagues, right? Like with Steele and Thompson, it was kind of, here's your bullpen spot, earn your starting spot. You may fall back to the bullpen. And it worked. It worked for both guys. It's been successful. No matter where they ended up, they've become major league pitchers. Now you wonder with Wesneski, will they do the similar path with him, or will they just be like, no, he's best served as a starter for us, so we're going to keep him stretched out, AAA, and if he doesn't win the job over Sampson. It's interesting. And back to Hendricks, like, you don't know what you're going to get out of him, but at the same time, you look at guys, he's got more innings and wins than Sutcliffe, Wood, Lester, Arrieta. I guess the better question for Hendricks is maybe not what do you expect from him, what are the chances, or what percentage would you put on the Cubs picking up his option for 24? Like, I mean, it'd be easy if you'd seen him throw, right?
Yeah,
like if you're watching him throw somewhere and be like, wow, he's really good. But realistically, what does Kyle Hendricks have to do this season for the Cubs to pick up a $16 million option for 24? How good does he have to be? Because even if he comes back,
how much is it?
$16 million in 24. So he's been very affordable. He's the one guy that did take the deal from the Cubs, right, to stick around.
To me, to earn that, outside of just, the fact that he's been with the organization, emotions brought up, blah, 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 blah. To me, he would have to pitch like he did in 2020 for a majority of this season.
It's a lot for a 4 or 5 when you have pitching depth coming.
To get that much,
and he was like money in the Cy Young race with Yu Darvish in 2020, those 60 games. Yeah. So like,
I don't know that it's to get the $16 million, it has to be at least close to that. I think if he pitches well and shows he could still be a part of this rotation, they'll not necessarily, they won't pick up the option, but they could always rework, or negotiate a new one. Because $16 million for like a number 5 starter is a lot of money. At number 4 or 5. So if he pitches well and proves he can still, be a good part of this rotation as they look to compete, they'll probably renegotiate something to keep him around because he is such a big part of this team and he's a great baseball mind. All those young pitchers look up to him and seek out his advice, and he's just so good at doing that they've lost so much leadership over the years of like what it means to win as a Cub. But Kyle Hendricks is still a guy that if he can pitch well, would be a good idea to keep him around to also provide that leadership of like, here, I've done it before. This is how you win. in Chicago, and this is what it means to be a Cub, but this is also what it means to win as a Cub.
I think reworking it's more likely, as you're saying, but I think they've proven the last 2 years that sentimentality does not matter. It is not a factor at all. So do I think reworking it rather than picking up the 16 is, I think that's more likely. You negotiate a lower figure, but I think it's a question if he's here in 2024 right now, because for one, we have to see what his health is like, but the way they have guys coming and the depth they've accumulated, like maybe they get to a point where they say, like, as they have with other guys, thank you for your contributions and see ya. I mean,
because you're not going to stash him at AAA.
No.
Like that's just not. Yeah. That's like other guys currently right now. If you want to stash Wesneski for a part of the season, you can. But to your point, it may not even be about the money. It may be that he's past where they need him to be, and the next wave is coming. At some point, you've got to hand the keys to those young guys to your future. So we could be, if I had to put a percentage, I would say 80%. For me personally, what I think, I would guess it's 80% this is his last season in a Cubs uniform, even if he wants to be here.
Yeah,
it's a shame.
And even if he bounces back and has a good season.
Well, yeah, my whole thing is like thinking it through my own lens, and like if I'm Jed Hoyer and the Cubs front office, like that's how I would approach it. Yeah. But as you guys are saying, like the Cubs have shown that the best players, some of the best players in their entire franchise history, they're willing to trade them or let them walk.
The difference with Kyle Hendricks, and it's a shame, honestly, because of how much he's meant to the organization, is I think even fans are kind of like, I wouldn't say done with him, but like I think it won't hurt as much as seeing some of the other guys who have left. So, and a lot of that, unfortunately, is because he just hasn't been healthy. And like, unfortunately, that's how fans act sometimes. It's like if you're not doing your job,
what have you done for me? Kind of league,
it's like
man.
if you haven't done anything for us, then like why are you here? And like I don't look at it that way. The reasons that I've been down on Kyle Hendricks is like there's just like not a lot of trust there in like his health, and like he's getting older. Obviously, the velo has never been a thing. Can he continue to do what he does as he gets older? All these types of things. While the Cubs have completely changed how their pitching infrastructure looks and the guys that they've developed and all that, So to me, it's like you look at a guy like Kyle Hendricks and you can probably get away without really losing much if he were to move on after next season. So
well, if he does pitch well, which we all hope he pitches well this season, we've seen what pitchers get and what teams are willing to take flyers on a guy for 1 year. Kyle might end up at the end of his career being a 1 year. He could end up being the Rich Hill, right? Like where teams are like, he didn't. How much has he made in his career? Like he didn't take the big contract. He took the nice deal from the Cubs, right? So he may want to, when he looks back at it, he might want to say, I do want to get one big payday from somebody for one season if I have a good season and go chase a ring somewhere.
I definitely don't think he's done, like assuming he's healthy.
I don't either. He's still got, if he's healthy, he's got something left.
Yeah, I mean, I think someone would take, I don't even call it a flyer. Like if he had a decent year and probably, not 30 starts because of the health to start the year, but people would be interested in him. I mean, I think there would be across baseball, but it's a matter of, I mean, I think he would want to stay here, but it's not. It has to go both ways, and that's the shame of it all. It's like he should be someone. He seemed like someone. If you asked me this in 2020, and I know sorry, it's not a Cardinals podcast, but like the Adam Wainwright of the Cubs, right? Like, he's not the guy who's going to throw 95 and maybe gradually. Like he was at a place where he was command control, and he was someone who you thought would have the longevity to be here for deep into his 30s, and then the shoulder thing popped up, and now it's this question, and I think that's the shame of it all. He seemed like someone that could have been here for a long time, and now we're questioning what's next, and it's a health thing, and that's the unfortunate part.
Well, that's the thing is like he started opening day last year, like he was still a huge part. Yeah, but I'm saying like even as far as late as last year, still started opening day was someone who's still a big part of this rotation. Had he pitched the whole year, had he been better than he was in 2021. You're probably looking at the Cubs looking to re-sign him again and keeping him around as part of the rotation. But as you said, it's like the shoulder thing popped up. He missed the second half of the year, and now you have no idea what you got in Kyle Hendricks. You really don't know if he's going to be healthy. You don't know if he comes back, will he stay healthy? Like and
that's the thing. Like
it's a lot of stuff.
What you just said, like I feel it. Like if if he was healthy and was just not even necessarily the level of 2020, but just like consistent, and he was still giving you quality outings, then yeah, I'd probably be like, yeah, pick up that option. You know what I mean? Because yeah, he's meant
even at 16 mil.
Yeah, I would if he's healthy. If he was healthy last year and was just solid. If he was just solid, I would consider it just based off what he's meant to the organization. I know that's more emotional, blah 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 blah, but again, he did take the very nice deal. Maybe that could have been something that the Cubs could have, given him in the back end to make up for some of that, I guess, in a way, for like dollars wise. But again, he hasn't been healthy, and that's why we're sitting here questioning. So I'm looking at it from that perspective, as if he would have been healthy and if he was just solid. I'm not even asking for number 1 starter or number 2 starter like performance. I'm just asking for just solid. Like if he had done that the last couple years, then yeah, what's one more year and then paying him $16 million for it?
Richie D. Breezy with a super chat saying Wesneski better than any other option at 5 spot in the rotation. Love you guys.
Love you too,
appreciate
Richie.
Thank
a lot
you
of people
for
feel that way.
He might be. I think just the way the roster is made up right now. Like I think
a lot of it is how many innings do the Cubs want to put this guy through in this season.
Course of action seems like AAA might be the option they go.
So if I put the odds at 50% that he's back in 24, are you going over those? You think the percentage is higher or lower than 50% in 24? I'll say lower.
I'd say lower too.
It hurts me, but I'll say lower.
Yeah.
Can you find those odds on DraftKings?
Odds that he's on the Cubs in 24? I think there's a spot for him on the team. I think for multiple reasons it could be very, very tricky, even if he is pitching well, that he's with the Cubs. He's going to definitely have to want to be on the Cubs and aggressively want to be on the Cubs, I think.
Yeah.
Anyways, how about a pick of the week? You got a DraftKings pick of the week for us, Cody?
Pick of the week. I had a few of those boosts last night on DraftKings. LeBron and Luka Doncic to combine for 65+. That hit when LeBron still had a quarter and a half to play last night. It was a nice little winner. My pick of the week, I said it on Monday. I love the Bengals on Sunday.
They're a 2.5-point favorite now.
Yeah, well, I got them when they were an underdog. In my bet slip right now, I'm riding Joe Cool. I'm riding or dying with the ship, man.
I'm going to go against you. I'm going to go Chiefs plus 2.5. It might get even wider.
It's going to be a close game. It's going to be a good one. Hopefully it's like an all-time classic that we're talking about to our kids at bedtime stories in 10 years. Or, Luke can do it, after the Super Bowl, whatever, when the Bengals win.
If Luke can bet on DraftKings, so can you.
That's right.
That was the motto. Are you Chiefs or Bengals?
I think Mahomes' ankle is too much of a question. So
that's why the line is shifted.
Right? Like 5 different.
On Sunday, the Bengals were an underdog. So now you said they're a 2.5-point favorite. The Bengals are.
Pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah. Give me Joe Burrow. That guy's got great hair and he's just smooth.
He's got vibes.
He's
That's
got
what
vibes.
you like about him. He's
definitely got vibes.
The one thing you can say about Joe Burrow, he's got a vibe about him. There's no question about that.
That
comes in those crazy outfits.
The picture of him after the national championship when he was with LSU with the cigar. That's like an all-timer. Like they should hang that in like the Louvre or whatever. You know what I mean? Whatever it's fucking called.
The Louvre?
The Louvre. Thank you.
The Louvre?
I always forget how you say it, so I apologize.
The Louvre?
As much as you tweet it out, hang it in the...
Well, I don't have to say it. I'm just typing it out like it's a thing.
Also, a little disappointed that Joey came back from France with the Bulls guys. We didn't even get a croissant from the guy.
No baguettes, nothing.
Not even a cheap croissant from the grocery store. They don't travel well.
Whatever.
Freeze them. So we continue tomorrow. We're going to continue our interviews from Cubs convention. Tucker Barnhart we're going to talk to.
Did you do Game Time?
Oh, I forgot Game Time. Good
Time.
call.
Can't
Thank
forget
you.
about
Oh,
Game
man.
Time.
I
Can't forget
apologize.
about Game
Game
Time.
You
Time.
can go
here.
watch Bengals and Chiefs.
You want to do Game Time?
With Game Time?
I'll do Game Time.
You do Game Time. Game Time is really your deal.
Yeah, I mean, Game Time is my deal because I like getting...
You use it all the time.
I like getting tickets last second. If I was at Missouri, I would have gotten that ticket last second to watch them beat Ole Miss yesterday by 15. I wasn't at Missouri, so I didn't.
Congratulations.
But Game Time is the hottest new ticketing site that makes it easier than ever to score the best deals on tickets to sports, concerts, and shows. Ever dream of sitting in a seat you never thought you could buy? The 50-yard line, courtside, behind home plate. Floor seats at a concert is possible with the Game Time app. The biggest last-minute price drops can be found on the seats you thought you never could buy. You won't find a better deal this season on Sox tickets, Cubs tickets, Bears tickets, Bulls tickets, Blackhawks tickets, whatever Chicago sport team you want to go to. You won't find a better deal than that. Game Time is created by the fans, for the fans. They guarantee the lowest price. If you love CHGO, then you'll love Game Time. The best way to support us is by buying your tickets through the link in the description. Join over 15 million people who have downloaded the Game Time app and score the best seats to all your favorite events.
See, that's why I let you do it, because that was a solid read.
Thank you.
That was very nice. And thanks for the reminder, because I totally forgot.
Yeah, I was like, Luke, are you forgetting the Game Time read?
I'm already thinking about the drive home, the traffic. Is it going to be bad? Slushy, potentially lake effect coming our way.
Wasn't too bad getting over here.
No, it wasn't. Roads are pretty good. Shout out to Lightfoot on that one. She did a good job getting the roads finally clear.
Thanks, Lori. I still think Keegan should be the mayor.
There we go. We'll see.
Keegan should be the mayor. But he's one of our interviews coming up, by the way. And
I'm looking forward to that one. Since
he may or may not have a comment about being the potential mayor of Chicago in that interview. Tucker Barnhart, I think you're going to really enjoy it tomorrow. Yeah. Really good interview, really good guy. And again, we talked about stock up, stock down. He's one of the reasons stock up defensively. Like, they put a lot into this. He's super excited about coming. So that's coming up at 1:20 in our podcast on Thursday. Make sure you watch us live on YouTube. Subscribe so that you don't miss us. And then give the 5-star reviews and the likes and all those things. Tim Stebbins, thank you so much for coming on this. Always welcome here. Anytime you want to come on the podcast, swing on by, jump in seat number 4 over there. And we'll see you again soon, hopefully. And thanks to everybody in the chat. Good show today. Make sure you're here tomorrow. We appreciate it. And thanks for checking out the CHGO Cubs Podcast presented by DraftKings, America's top-rated sportsbook. Download the app. Use the promo code CHGO when you sign up. Until Thursday, make sure you fly the W.